Well, hello and good evening, and welcome to this very special webinar from Expats Portugal tonight. So the end of the NHR scheme was announced last week, and the concern about that has been considerable. So we'll do our best tonight on this Portugal tax update special webinar to bring you the latest information, take a look at the financial outlook, and look at the timeline, the deadline as well from the experts that we have for you lined up this evening, who are, of course, Gilda Pereira from EI, and Daniel Reis from Reis and Pellicano. Let's go first to you, Gilda. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. It has been a long week and a long day.
Yeah,
because of the NHR. And
yes. So I'm correct, am I, in assuming that this has caused quite a flurry all around the world among people who are keen to move to Portugal? Give us a sense, if you will, of the scale of concern and interest that's coming into your office.
Well, of course, that this was a change, a very suddenly change, and well, maybe we were expecting it, seeing the context that things were taking, but not so suddenly. We were expecting that this was going to happen in a certain time, and that there was going to be a time for a transition, not like, oh, it's going to end and then in 5 days it's foreseen on the law, and it was so sudden, and of course that people that were planning to come and the visas were already started. People were panicking, and they had reasons for that.
Yeah. Because
now they plan things, their lives in a certain way, and this is going to have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
now
everyone is panicking, and our email boxes are full, our telephones are full of text messages and don't stop ringing, and we are trying to address as much questions as we can.
Okay, great, and we'll do more of that tonight. You are, of course, well known and well loved by the community at Expats Portugal.
I hope so.
And well, you definitely are. And we'll have other people here tonight who are new, I think, who've been attracted by the subject matter. So if you could give a brief introduction to yourself and your company for those of you who haven't met you yet, could you tell us about EI, please?
Okay, so I'm the founder of which is the first migration agency in Portugal. We have office in Lisbon and in Porto, and we do all the migration process, the relocation, and all the other services around the transition to the foreign country, to Portugal. And of course, the NHR is one of the services that is associated with this process.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And you can be found in the Expats Portugal Business Directory, of course, and premium members will get a discount on your services. So thank you for the time being, Gilda. Let's go to our other speaker this evening, who's actually on holiday. When we were chatting before, we did say, Daniel, this is a terrible time to go on holiday. It's always a terrible time to go on holiday, you said, for a very busy and successful lawyer. And thank you so much for taking time out of your holiday to be with us from the Azores, of course.
Thank you.
Paradise over there. How has this been for you in this last couple of weeks, Daniel?
Well, incredibly busy. And as I said, there's no good weeks to take an holiday. This was probably not a good choice, but I was not in my mind thinking about Mr. Costa's surprise. So it was indeed a surprise. As Gilda said, we were not expecting this change to be so dramatic. And so sudden. So a lot of turmoil was caused, and a lot of people second guessing the decision. So it's something that it caused an impact, no doubt about it.
For sure. And for anyone who doesn't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and Reis and Pellicano, if you will?
Well, we are a law firm that mainly works with expats, with foreigners. We usually tend to the situations of people already in Portugal, so property purchases on the legal side, wills, international wills. This is one of the other services requested. People that want to incorporate in Portugal, if you want to establish a company in Portugal, this is something that we do as well. And all legal services that are connected with someone that is usually already in Portugal. So usually Gilda brings the people to Portugal, and I do tend to their matters once they are in Portugal. That's how we usually operate.
Yep, excellent. Okay, and I'm going to come back to you after we've said a few hellos to people and see where people are listening in, tuning in from around the world. It would be good to just recap on what it was and what we're losing so that people are clear about what we're talking about, the NHR here. But let's just say hi to Virginia. Ken's over there. We've got people in the UAE. We've got people in Spain tonight, Canada. We have representatives from Detroit, Arizona, Virginia, people in Lisbon. Good evening to you in Lisbon, California, Arizona, Toronto Airport. Somebody on the move there. Keen to know what's going on with the NHR. LA. A question, is this just a political ploy? We'll come back to those more general political questions later because I think people will want to know about the specifics, but that's a good question and we can come back to that later. Florida, Lagos this evening as well. Good evening to you, Derek and Linda. Funchal, excellent. And Boston, Tacoma, people all, Calgary as well, people all over the world tuned in tonight and questions beginning to come in. Holland as well. Yes, do get those questions into the chat and I will group them together as best as I can. And after the recording is over, we'll get a chance to ask some of your more personal questions as well. So what's being lost, Daniel? What was the NHR? If we can just sort of set the scene and give a bit of context.
Well, the NHR was a program, if my memory stands correct, created around 2011 or 2012, that was providing tax benefits for people that wanted to settle in Portugal. And it was directed for almost everyone that was not a tax resident in Portugal in the last 5 years. So there's a lot of people that say that the NHR was targeted for foreigners, but not only that, it was targeted for Portuguese people that were living abroad and that could consider returning to Portugal and requesting this tax benefit. So it was, in my opinion, highly beneficial because it was attracting professionals from all over the world and attracting new blood to the country. So it was indeed an interesting program. And it was attracting as well people that were retired and that wanted to spend their retirement here because it was advantageous. It brought some issues with other governments, like, for instance, the Swedish government, that they decided to break the bilateral agreement because of this situation of the NHR and the pensions not being fully taxed here. But still, so it brought some attention to Portugal. But the situation is the following, my reading at least, is that the other countries do have similar programs to the NHR, and they will benefit from this situation because a lot of the professionals that were being attracted to Portugal may direct themselves to any other country. So I think it's just a mistake that this is being implemented now. And touching on the political situation that you were addressing, this is the politicians doing their work, or at least bad work, in my opinion, because the government wants to have or to show the perception or to demonstrate to the public that it is trying to do something on the habitational crisis that we are facing. But again, they're not doing the correct thing, and the correct thing would be increase the supply, lower taxes on the supply, and then you'll have the demand and the supply will reach an equilibrium. At the current moment, it's indeed imbalanced, but this is a problem of supply, and this is not addressing the issue. So it's just a political gimmick to for the government to demonstrate that they're doing something, and the result will not be more houses available. It's just going to be not attracting professionals to Portugal. That's my general view on it.
Okay, and as you said, the Prime Minister used the media to share his change, the sudden change about the NHR being scrapped. Let's go back to Gilda then in Lisbon and find out what this has meant. So as soon as the Prime Minister did that, Gilda, it caused quite a lot of concern around the world, it has to be said, beyond Portugal, for those people who you're working with and bringing to Portugal. What could you give us an idea of some of the main concerns of people who've been calling you and emailing you?
Yes, because the NHR program was very interesting because it would block the taxation for dividends and for pensions. It used to be exempt for pensions, but then because many countries and even the European Union was claiming, they started to tax pensions on 10%. So dividends and interests were exempt if they were paid in their own countries. They were not taxed in Portugal, and this was very attractive for entrepreneurs, people that were having their income on their countries, and also, of course, for the people that were coming to Portugal living on their pensions. They only were paying 10% on their pensions. And of course, that most of our clients that are coming with the D7, everything changed, because now they are going without the NHR. What is going to happen? And this is something that I want people to be clear, because sometimes there is too much panic. They are not going to be double. It's not going to be a double taxation.
Okay.
What is going to happen? You are going to, if you are American or British or wherever country you are from, you are going to be paid to be taxed in your own country. And well, according to the taxation law of your country, but in principle, you are going to be taxed in your country. And then the difference, if there is a difference between the tax rate of your country and the tax rate that should be applicable in Portugal, you are going to be paid the difference. If there isn't any difference, it's going to be like a credit, but not a credit that you are going to be reimbursed.
Yeah, but you won't be liable if it's less.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. But for instance, I'm going to give you an example. For dividends, Americans, they pay, I think they are withheld 15% when they are living abroad, 50% on dividends. And then in Portugal, they pay 28%. So the calculations are, they already paid 15%, so they are going only to pay the difference,
13.
not the 28%.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That helps. Before we go to some of the specific questions, people are
sorry. Another thing that is important. I'm sorry. Another thing that is important to say. It's about the digital nomads. It's also a huge difference, because the government has just created a visa for the digital nomads that they can come to live to Portugal. They are working abroad, and it's all very nice. And now they once again change the rules. And this was not a good thing. This doesn't seem reliable for people.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is something in the law that you can work that it can help the digital nomads to work on the tax impact. to reduce the tax impact of the income that they get.
Okay. Part of course, with the D7, we're used to people who are retirees and on passive income. And so presumably what you're referring to there is people who are actively in employment and will lose the low tax rate. That's a big concern. It was a 20% flat tax rate, wasn't it, for people who are still working? Can you say more about that, about how that's likely to change and how likely they're to be taxed? And I wasn't entirely clear what you meant about with the digital nomads. Is it going to be is there a different system coming for them that will be advantageous, do you think?
Yes, it's a different system. It's going to be, but it's for income that it's received in Portugal. So it's only if they open an activity in Portugal and they pay taxes in Portugal.
Right.
And the income can be exempt 50 up to 50%.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. So
Okay.
This will become clear, and that's a lot of the confusion is about this, isn't it? Is about how much you're paying in your country of origin, whether you're paid in your country of origin or whether you're paid in Portugal,
Yes.
and whether you've started a business to do that over here. So it's complex. Make no.
It is very complex. It is very complex. This is not easy to understand.
It's not, and we'll do it. But we will do our best tonight to decode and crack as much of it as possible. Before we get into some of these specific questions, though, Gilda and Daniel.
Yes.
Timescale.
Also, I'm sorry about the 20%. Just to try to make this clear before people start making the questions.
Yep.
About the 20% that we had, this 20% flat rate.
Yeah.
This was almost killed. Okay, almost killed, because now it's only for investigators. Okay, scientists, investigators, university professors, and high skills, very high skills with PhDs and with companies, projects that are certified by the government and involved 3 million euros. So it's almost no one.
And not a flat rate for everybody on a blanket basis. Okay, so you do have to check. I mean, part of the conversation tonight is to get people to understand that they really need to check their individual circumstances. This is not time, is it, to say, well, okay, there is a blanket rule here, because these blanket rules and generalities, I don't think can be trusted anymore, can they? And the things you read on social media, you really do need to find out for your specific circumstances, and we will do our best to guide you in the right direction in the beginning of that process tonight to tell you what's going on. Is that everything from you, Gilda? And can we go to the timescale now? Because that's part of the worry here, isn't it? Is when it's going to happen.
Let's go.
Okay, so when you seem to say you seem to think it was, and Daniel, I think some of your comments, you think it's going to happen very quickly. What's your guess on this, Gilda? Because it has to be a guess, doesn't it, at the moment, when it's going to be implemented or when it's going to be unimplemented, if you see what I mean.
I don't know what Daniel thinks about this, but for me, it's not a guess. For me, it's going to end on you need to become a tax resident until the 31st of December, and you can still apply until the 31st of March 2024.
Okay, thank you for those specifics. That's really helpful. Would you concur with that, Daniel?
I do, because of the following reason. Once Costa told or put the measure forward, it wasn't specific about the dates. It just said 2024. But then we had the budget just delivered 2 days ago. And on the budget, you do have a lot of rules connected with the state. So it's somewhat of a tradition here in Portugal. Instead of just having the budget and the expenses and the money in and the money out, they usually approve a lot of other rules that are not connected specifically with the budget. So this situation on the NHR is covered with the budget, and I do concur with the timelines that Gilda was putting forward.
Okay, so there is an urgency. You need to apply until the end of the year. And sorry, what's the distinction here between the end of the year and the 31st of March 24, Gilda?
So you need to become a tax resident in Portugal until the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's say you become a tax resident in the 31st of December.
Yeah.
You can still apply for the NHR until the 31st of March.
Okay. All right. Any questions so far, anybody? Please pop them into the chat and I'll do my best to get to them. And we will go to, when we finish the recording here, we will go to open questions so that we can definitely make sure we hear from everybody and get as many concerns addressed as we can tonight. Let's go to the first of our questions then. Good evening. I have one question, please. Without NHR, how will rental income, capital gains from Dubai, UAE be treated for tax purposes, taking into account that UAE is a blacklisted jurisdiction? I didn't know that. Do you want to take that first? We can just go back and forth between you and Daniel. But Gilda, do you want to take that one first?
Daniel.
Oh, I'm going to hand that over to Daniel, that one.
I thought it was me, so I unmuted myself. Well, for capital gains in UAE, it's the situation will not make a difference at all, because countries that were blacklisted were not basically, if the country was blacklisted, the NHR wouldn't apply. That's the general rule of thumb. So it's going to be the exact same situation with the NHR or without the NHR. And that's why I do emphasize what Gilda was saying. Each case is a case, and it needs to be studied before any rush the decisions are done. So for people that are on the fence because of this NHR situation, before the decision is taken, my advice is to indeed have a consultation with an accountant in the US, of course, and in Portugal. So the math can be done and you can ascertain if things do add up. Because in some situations, having the NHR is totally indifferent. In some other situations, not having the NHR may have a big impact. So I think it's important to stress this out, is that before any changes are indeed, or before you stop considering Portugal as your new home, have a tax consultation, because that's really relevant, so you can ascertain what's the impact of this measure, if any. Because in some situations like this one that we were just discussing, the countries that are blacklisted, that are considered tax havens, the NHR wouldn't have any difference, because and I think that this makes sense, they have already a more favorable tax regime over there. So it's something that the law already had provisioned.
So certainly on this side, you may want to talk to AFM in the Expats Portugal Business Directory, and I'll put a link to them in the chat now. Thank you for that. And it's really good to address that, Daniel, because I'm seeing on social media, oh, well, that's it, I'm giving up on Portugal, they've scrapped their NHR. That might be a bit too hasty, right? As you say,
correct.
In two cases, when people have done the maths, it might be an indifferent situation. So do check. Don't have a completely emotional response would be the advice.
Correct.
Do the numbers, run the numbers, and see if that knee-jerk reaction is worthwhile. We'll stay with you, Daniel, because there was a question aimed specifically at you earlier on in the chat here, which I'm trying to find now. Yeah, question about NHR for Daniel. We applied for the D7 in January 23 from Dubai, and this is quite specific, and our 12-month lease in Portugal is running since February 23. Sadly, we don't have the approval yet. Can we apply for NHR now before the D7 is approved? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Based on our long-term lease. If not, then... And if not, then, in case our D7 is approved and we arrive in Portugal before the 31st of December of this year, can we apply then? I've read that having a long-term lease can help you prove tax residency. Please, can you confirm this? Great question.
Well, indeed, having a long-term lease can assist with the tax residency, because you have an article in the law, the IRS code, and basically that Article 16, what it states is that even though you may not have a residency permit, but if you have evidences that you plan to stay here for more than 6 months, you can request tax residency. residency. And those evidences are, for instance, property purchased, a rental contract, that is a long-term rental contract. So those evidences are indeed possible to be displayed to the tax authorities to convince them to change the tax residency. The other thing that I would eventually provide is an entry stamp. So depends on when those clients did entry in Portugal for the first time. If they've entered already, because if they don't have, if they are still in the process of requesting a visa, they may not yet have come to Portugal. So this needs to be ascertained. But in short, for that specific situation, due to the fact that the contract started in the beginning of 2023, the visa is being requested, I think that it's worthwhile to request the tax residency, because it's not the client's fault that the consulate is taking such a long period, as well as CEF and so on and so forth. So if the visa was issued, I would say that this was a clear situation and the tax residency could be requested without any major problems, although they would still be waiting for the residency permit. But for this situation, as the contract is a long-standing contract, I would say that the chances of obtaining an approval are indeed good. But sometimes the tax authorities will need to be fought on this. So depends highly on the person that will attend you, or depends on if this is done electronically, on the person that is on the other side. But I think on that specific situation is you have a good fighting chance. That's my assessment of the situation.
And of course, they'll get the last word, and there are no guarantees. And picking up on this point of appealing, Daniel, it looks like this is going to be.
I'm sorry. I need to make one note here.
Go on.
The lease agreement needs to be at least 6 months in place.
What elapsed? You need to have had the lease agreement for 6 months already. Okay, that's good to know.
And it's not. It's most of the tax offices ask for more documents, not only the lease agreements.
Okay. All right. So you need to build quite the case.
Yes, you need to build the case.
The question I was going to ask, and let's stay with you, Gilda, for this, is if you're taking issue with decisions or asking for your circumstances to be seen in a certain way because you've been delayed, this is going to mean a load more work for those people in finances, correct? This is going to be a big extra workload that's in the pipeline.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right, which I'm sure they won't be thanking the Prime Minister for. Okay, so I anticipate that as well. I mean, it's not as if these channels are free and flowing freely at the moment, is it? This is going to be more congestion within the pipelines of migration into Portugal. So be aware of that. Be patient about it as well. But you've got the answer to your question there about that lease situation. Did you want to add something to that, Gilda?
Yes. Also, one thing is that everyone had the same idea. That I want to apply now to have the NHR. And I said, okay, you want to apply now, but you need to be aware that I cannot guarantee that your visa is going to be approved before the end of the year, because everybody had the same idea.
Oh, does that mean then you could become a tax resident without even getting a visa?
No, it doesn't mean. So I cannot guarantee.
Yeah.
Everyone said, okay, I want to apply now.
Yes.
I want to start running now to get the visa.
Yeah.
But I had to say, okay, you can apply now, but I cannot guarantee that you will become a tax resident or that you will have your visa before the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Because what is going to happen, it's that the consulates are also going to be overwhelmed.
Yes, right. And it's not as if, like I say, it's not as if they were flowing freely to begin with, is it? So extra workloads, be aware of that, everybody. Question from, let's stay with you, Gilda, for this question. Will CPLP help me get over the line in time to qualify for NHR? So somebody taking the former colony route and the Portuguese-speaking countries, will that help in any way to get NHR done quicker?
No.
No, it won't. Okay,
not from my experience.
Okay, Connie, will the sale of a US home in 2024 before the CEF appointment be pulled into the Portuguese taxes? That's a capital gain in the United States in 2024. Daniel, I think you might want to take that one.
Well, that needs to be declared here in Portugal, but we'll need to have a look into the bilateral agreement, because you do have two running things or two important things running the show with NHR and the agreements to avoid double taxation. So if the home is sold in the US, the taxes will need to be paid in the US because those capital gains do belong there, and it needs to be declared here. And from heart, I think that the capital gains will not be paid in Portugal, but this is from heart. I would need to consult the agreement. So in short, it needs to be declared in the US and it needs to be declared here. Regarding the taxation here, I'll need to assess the agreement to avoid double taxation between Portugal and the US, because this varies widely between country to country. And so I'm not stating something that is not that doesn't correspond to the truth. Take this information with a grain of salt. It needs to be verified with the agreement in front of me.
Okay, so Connie, you need to get in touch and talk through that specific scenario there. Yumiko, some good news here. Hello from Porto. Finally, just had a CEF appointment on the 4th of October. Thank you, Renata from EI. However, now hope we're able to apply for the NHR, even though we do not have residency cards. That's okay, isn't it? The residency cards are a formality, aren't they, Gilda? And you'll still be able to apply for the NHR.
Yes, now you can apply for the NHR.
Well done, Yumiko. Hello, I got a question regarding the tax calculation of rental income and capital gains when only one spouse is moving on a D7 to Portugal. Here's a scenario. Thank you, Shania, for this. All the properties are in the wife's name and not jointly owned with her husband. She is moving with her son on a D7 and her husband will join after a few years. How is the rental income and capital gains treated for tax purposes? Will she pay taxes on 50% of the income and capital gains only? Do you have any precedents here, Daniel, in property owned by couples, depending on how they, I guess, appropriate those?
Correct. Well, the tax declarations in Portugal can be submitted jointly or separately. If the spouse is not moving to Portugal, then she is the only person liable to deliver the tax returns here and can have the kid joining in the taxes, because that does provide a good tax rebate. In terms of the capital gains, they will need to be declared in the US, and they will need to be declared here as well. And in terms of the taxation to be paid, again, this is all on the agreement to avoid double taxation. So this is a very specific question that I want to mislead. I don't want to mislead the client, unless Gilda has a contribution on this. But Gilda?
I never had a case like this, so I don't know.
Okay, so you'd have to go on it on a
correct.
Basis.
This needs time to be studied, so no wrong advice is provided.
Yeah, and this is very difficult, isn't it? Because we can't just give generalizations. These are very specific things. I don't know if we've made that, we're making that as clear as we possibly can tonight. We're trying to group together any generalities, but we're not in that sort of territory anymore, sadly. This maybe, though, is a fairly straightforward timeline matter. Connie says, I have the NIF from 2023 and the CEF appointment in 24. In which year must the Portuguese tax return be sent? In 24 or 25? When do you file your first Portuguese tax return?
Well, the situation is if that person is already in Portugal and already has a CEF appointment, it seems like it, they should become a tax resident within this year to enjoy the tax, the NHR, the tax benefits.
And you're returning, as soon as you're a tax resident, then you need to file.
Well, not as soon. The tax returns are delivered from April to June of the following year. So if you become a tax resident in 2023, in 2024, you need to declare the taxes of the income generated in the past year, and so on and so forth. So for that specific situation, for someone that becomes a tax resident in 2023, tax returns will need to be delivered in 2024 here in Portugal and everywhere else that person is generating income.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Daniel, for that. Thank you, George, for your table of taxable income. My goodness, that's an interesting document that you've posted into the chat there as well. Mike, I saw a news story about an NHR-like tax proposal for 24, capping income tax on high-performing individuals. You went into that, Gilda. Should we take this as an indication that further modifications might be possible? This is a good question, actually. I'm particularly interested in pension income tax advantages for retirees. Now, what might happen, and this could only be speculation at this point, is do you think the NHR will go like the golden visa is going, but something else will come in its place that will give back an advantage? So when the first part of this is proving to the Portuguese people that the government are doing something to deal with their problems of housing. Do you think that some sort of bone, as it were, might be thrown to the foreigners at some point, giving them a different kind of tax incentive or advantage in the future? Or would you rather not say, Gilda?
I don't think it's going, if it's going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen soon.
Okay, so they've got to let the political dust settle before they bring anything. Daniel, you're nodding there. You'd agree with that?
I fully agree. I fully agree. Now, as the political situation is, if the government tried to have any measures, any laws put forward that would be considered beneficial to foreigners, I think that they would be in deep water, and this is not something that Mr. Costa wants at the moment. So I don't think that this is a reality for the time being. Probably in the next term, in 2 or 3 years from now, but not at the current moment as the political situation is.
No, of course, and he needs to satisfy his countrymen and women first, doesn't he? And then wait for a problem to come with the foreigners, and then deal with that later. So yes, of course.
No, only when he feels that the money is missing.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. So when there's an impact from foreign investment that's gone missing, then that might be the time to do something. And that's not going to show itself, is it, for a few months or even years yet? Joanna, I hold an EU passport. I have a Portuguese NIF. If I want to apply for NHR, you do want to apply for NHR, and my partner of many years is British. We were planning to get married in April next year. If I move to Portugal before the year end, confirm my residency and apply for NHR, would my British partner be able to obtain a proof of residency as well and apply for NHR? Were you keeping up with that one, Gilda?
Yes, actually, I have some cases like that. It's easier. It's easier when you have an European partner, because we can get them to have the crew, and because they are married, we can submit with the marriage certificate. Oh, yeah, they are not married. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got instantaneous feedback coming in. Let's come back to that.
You need to marry before the end of the year. I'm sorry, married before the end of the year.
That's what's happening here, isn't it? Yeah, people are changing their plans to get the NHR.
Everyone is changing their plans.
They are, aren't
get
they?
married before the end of the year, so we can do it.
Okay, Gilda needs to buy another hat, and so does Daniel. Might want a new suit for that wedding. Okay, at what point in the D7 can you apply for your NHR? After you've received your visa, after you have your visa and arrive in Portugal, or after CEF? And that I'll roll it up with a question from Brenda. CEF interview November 27th. What are the chances of getting the NHR before residency is confirmed? So can you go back to that, Gilda, and say at what point you can make the NHR application, please?
Where is that question?
That's from Laurie. At what point in the D7 can you apply?
Yeah, but I want to read it. Laurie.
Time stamped 1946. Okay, I'm reading through as well here. We've got lots of questions, and I think the Mike.
What point? Okay.
1946, yeah.
Okay, so after you receive your D7 visa, after your visa arrive in Portugal, after you arrive in, okay, correct answer. When you receive your residency permit, because then you actually become a resident in Portugal. Great answer. When you arrive in Portugal with your visa, because we are running out of time. Desperate answer. When you get your visa, send us a picture and we'll try to change your address.
Okay, so you need some help there, and Gilda and team can help you with that. I'm not sure about this one though. Is there a marriage service to find a Portuguese husband to avoid the higher NHR taxes? No, Ginny, not that we're aware of, and even if we were, we wouldn't be advertising it here, I don't suppose. Daniel's watching. Okay, does the address on the NIF need to be changed to the Portugal address before applying for the NHR? A logistics question from Stephanie.
Yes, of course.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's the changing of tax residency.
Yes.
You remove the tax representative and you become a fully fledged tax resident in Portugal. And that's the first step. Without being a tax resident, you cannot request the NHR.
Okay, so a couple more then before we turn off the recording, because we officially overwhelmed again with concerns and questions, understandably, and we'll get to as many as we can. But just a couple more generalities, back to basics. What makes one a tax resident? Exactly how is tax resident defined? That's from Patty and from Jennifer. That's a good question.
It is. Well, the tax residency, in short, is if you live in Portugal for more than 6 months. So let's have the following scenario that you're waiting for your visa to be issued and you're already in Portugal. And you have substantial proofs that you've been living in Portugal, just waiting for your visa to be issued. This is not what consulates want. So they wish you to remain in your country before the visa is issued. But let's say that you've done this. You've requested the visa, the consulate is taking too long. You just came to Portugal, rented a house, and so on and so forth. If that person is living in Portugal for more than 6 months, by law, he does have the right to change his tax residency from abroad to Portugal. So basically, the criteria to ascertain if someone is a tax resident or not is this person living in Portugal for more than 183 days per year? If so, then that person has the right of having the tax residency here. And a tax resident is basically someone that considers Portugal as a main hub, even though they may travel quite a lot, but if they need to return home, it's Portugal. And there's a definition in the law for people that have their center of interests allocated in Portugal. So let's say that someone is not able to live here for 6 months plus 1 day in Portugal, but still has the family here, it has a home here, it has the kids studying in a school here, but is only able to stay in Portugal for 5 months. But as the center of interests is in Portugal, that person is a tax resident as well. There's not a lot of people that know this, and there's a lot of people that usually do spend more than 6 months out of Portugal, so they avoid being considered a tax resident. But what they don't know is if the situation was dug deeper from the tax authorities, if they did have the time and the will and the manpower to dig deep into this situation, if the tax authorities could perceive that the center of interest of this person was in Portugal, then they could change the tax residency from abroad to the country. So all this to say that basically is someone that or either stays in Portugal for more than 6 months or demonstrates evidences that they will stay in Portugal for more than 6 months. And this is either the residency visa, as Gilda was saying, residency permit, the situation about the rental contract for more than 6 months, or property purchase in Portugal. So you have a myriad of evidences that can be demonstrated to the tax authorities that you're staying here for more than 6 months. But the trick is to convince them. And that's where sometimes they will put up a fight, and especially now that a lot of they will be overwhelmed with requests for sure. And I think that they will try to deny more requests of tax residency just because they don't want the extra work. This is my guess. I may
no, it's already happening.
It makes utter sense, doesn't it? They're not going to make more work for themselves. Let's be straight about that and pragmatic about it. And on that note, Lowell is asking, if I take advantage of the NHR and decide to live abroad for more than 183 days, do I still have to file taxes during the time I'm abroad? it wouldn't be a bad idea to do that, would it? Just to cover that paper
Yes, you
trail
do. Otherwise, you will lose the right to
for your
the
NHR.
status. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go,
Yeah.
Lowell. Okay. Yes, so it's even
There's
more
one
fundamental than I
interesting
realized.
situation for people that are already enrolled in the NHR. But let's say that a business opportunity came up, or a good contract came up, and they need to move to back to the US for 2 years. Well, you can suspend the tax residency in the NHR, and the clock will still tick for the 10 years. But once you get back to Portugal, the clock is ticking, but you can resume the NHR benefit. So let's say that there were tax residents in 2022, they enjoyed the NHR in 2022, in 2023, and now 2024. They need to move back for 1 or 2 years to the US to have something done. This is not a preoccupation. They will not lose the NHR benefit, and I do think it's relevant to emphasize this. They can suspend the tax benefit, go abroad, stay there for 1 or 2 years, and then get back to Portugal and carry on enjoying the NHR. But the clock for the 10 years did tick in the meantime. So if they started in 2022, they'll have the benefit until 2032. Okay.
Very good. Thank you for including that. And on that note of enjoying the privilege of an NHR, a final question, and then I'll go to a roundup from both of you as well. Earl is asking, if you're a tax resident already, are you grandfathered in? So if you're already on the NHR, that's a concern for people, isn't it? That is going to be honoured, isn't it, until your 10 years is up?
Yes.
Well, that's good to know, and I should have asked you that earlier. But that's going to be a relief to a lot of people. And
Yes.
we needn't have
It's
taken
indeed
that.
a preoccupation, but if you're already in, don't worry, you're grandfathered in. Nothing will change in your life, because if the benefit was granted, then the government needs to be good for their word. This only affects new applications. That's why it's going to be from 2024 onward, and it will just affect new people applying and not people that are already in.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, finally, from both of you, if someone is super stressed about this, which you can understand some people will be, can I just have a few words from both of you on, like bringing some clarity and calmness to the situation? What do you recommend, Gilda, to somebody who finds themselves in a right old pickle and stressed about this NHR situation? What would you suggest they do? First step.
Well, what I've been speaking with my clients is, you need to know what you want to do first. You want what is the motive why you want to move to Portugal? What moves you?
Yes.
Why do you want to move to Portugal? Is the taxation going to change that or not? And then, if you want, you address me and we make the calculations. I can help you. We will make the calculations of the tax impact on that. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I think somebody said it may have been on our cost of living webinar last week, but if the NHR is the only reason you're moving to Portugal, you might want to think again anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Gilda. Anything else from you as we conclude this part of the webinar?
Well, I was a little bit sad with some people that came to me and said that I want to give up the process, because, and at some time I said, I thought that you wanted to come to Portugal because of the food, because you like the kindness of the people, because you said so much good things about Portugal, and at the end of the day, this rule came and everyone says that you don't want to come to Portugal. I know you pay taxes, but you still have a good healthcare, that you don't need to pay huge insurance. You still have all these good things, but I don't know, you have to sing at the end of the day. It's your choice. We will be here to support it, and if you are unclear about the NHR, we are here to take all the doubts and and to make all the clarifications and even to make the calculations if you want to.
Thank you, Gilda. Thank you for sharing that on that personal level. I appreciate that. Daniel, last words from you.
Well, I think it's really relevant to emphasize that the calculations need to be done, as Gilda said, because we understand that the NHR is indeed something that assists people coming to Portugal. The perspective of getting a tax break is interesting, but in some situations it's overhyped. And in some other situations it's highly beneficial, but some people do think that they'll have a tax break for life, and that the advantages are really that great. They are interesting, but it's a question of doing the math. And even if you end up paying a bit more taxes here in Portugal, it may compensate with the quality of life that you may have and the security and all that. So before any rush decisions are done, have the calculations done, and then this you can see if you want to migrate to Portugal or not. But do not let the NHR be the defining situation of your migration process.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. Susie saying definitely still coming and not panic. Just want to understand the impact on my income, just to be aware. Fair enough. Daniel and Gilda, muito obrigado for all your wise counsel, and thank you for the voice of reason and calm to you, Gilda, from Connie as well, and from Lowell. Obrigado, Carl and team. A great webinar as usual. Thank you for the information, says John. Very helpful. I'm still coming in 24, and Sloan.
Please come.
I agree, Gilda. Sad to hear people no longer want to call Portugal home because of tax impact. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to share Portugal with those kids, of those foreigners. Oh, Sloan, that's harsh, but I see what you're getting.
Good.
See what you're getting at there. Thank you, everybody. Oh, Joanna, thank you coming as well.
I was really sad. You know me, I'm always honest.
Yes, I do. I know that's
I'm always transparent. I was really sad. I was like, you only want to come here to save money. Come on. I was all this time thinking that you want to come here because you love my country. And now I discovered that you only want to come here to save money. Come on.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you, Gilda. Thank you, Daniel. Great job tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your questions.